Congratulations on yet another successful film, and welcome back to TIFF, of course. So you worked with Rob on Sharkwater, as we know.
We know. I did. I did.
And now Revolution.
Revolution.
So how did you first become involved with Sharkwater?
You know, Rob and I were introduced by a mutual acquaintance. Rob was talking was sort of reaching out to composers, and somebody said, "Hey, there's somebody making this really interesting movie about sharks," which at the time meant nothing to me like what it turned out to be. Rob comes out to LA. I go to pick him up at the airport, and it was the beginning of just a great friendship and creative relationship to do Sharkwater, which we worked on for quite some time. He'd been working on that movie for 4 years before I met him, and then we finished it up over a few months together.
Okay, so you didn't have to think twice about coming back for Revolution, of course.
You know, he had mentioned it to me a couple years ago, just sort of in passing, and then a year ago, it's like, this looks like it's happening, and Rob had so many ups and downs, and he thought he was finished with the movie, and then he decided to completely change it, and he went back out for another year to shoot some more, so I just sat by the phone until he called, and then the call came, and we kicked in, and again, an amazing experience to work on. You know, I thought Sharkwater was an incredibly important film, and it was. I mean, it really did change things. And the recognition was unexpected. I had no idea that Rob would reach so many people and really start a movement about finning. And it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And then, I came to TIFF for that, and Paul Watson, who's in Sharkwater, who got arrested with Rob in Costa Rica, was there, and we ended up having a wonderful time. And then Rob came to California, and we had some screenings there, and it was just an amazing experience. So coming back for TIFF 12, again, this has just been an amazing week to honor not just Rob's film, but Rob's vision of a movie far, far more vital and valuable and incredible as Sharkwater was and Revolution is.
Okay, so what was it about when you first heard about this project, Sharkwater, and about Rob? What was it that really pulled you in, that made you want to be a part of this project?
Well, it really only takes one phone call from Rob when he says, "We're going to change the world. That's what I'm doing. Would you like to do that with me?"
Wow.
I mean, you don't get that call too often from people who are straight ahead about it. And, it's these aren't films, this is a movement. And it started in one place, and this is kind of exactly the progression, moving straight forward. So it's a thrill. And, it's wonderful to see the reaction that people have to both of the films emotionally. And, emotion is what I'm all about. That's what I do. To see the outpouring of enthusiasm for what this is, and these aren't easy films to watch in many ways. You have to realize that these are movies that are about you, and there's parts of Revolution that the first time I watched them, I wept, and at the premiere the other night, I wept again. It took nothing to know that this was something to do. This was something to do.
Okay, so for a film like Revolution, or even Sharkwater for that matter, what's your process like? How do you go about figuring out what kind of music you're going to compose, what kind of tracks you're going to use for each scene? Like, what's your thought process behind that?
Rob is really, really clear about music and what is emotional and moving, and that's what he wants. It was interesting because in Sharkwater, and actually even more so in Revolution, he said, "Jeff, I want people to know how beautiful the world is so they'll care about losing it." And that was a call for the music, for where it would go. Rob has really a great ear for music, and he has real taste, that there's things he loves. And he's heard enough of my music from before Sharkwater and for Sharkwater. And then he heard a bunch of tracks that I'd been writing for an album project that was sort of almost done but not done. And he said, let's start with that. So these were pieces that I had started thinking about Rob, but it was a very personal thing I was doing. But those became the beginnings of Revolution. We, from there, because of the nature of the film and working on a tight documentary budget, as I started writing, I wanted to involve as many musicians as possible. But that's hard. It's expensive. It takes a lot of work. So what I did was I put out on my Facebook page, I said, if you're a musician and you'd be interested in playing on something really important, and I gave a link to the Revolution trailer, a link to a video about Revolution and United Conservationists. And I said, if you think you'd like to play, I have these tracks. Play on my tracks. And we got an amazing outpouring. Nearly 100 people wrote to me. And 20 or 25 people actually performed from countries all over the world. They donated their energy and their creativity. So they all came to me. I organized them, and I started to weave them in and out of the music that I'd written. And the results are gorgeous. And then a number of musicians in some of my musicians in Los Angeles, where I live, came to play. And one of the women who was one of the main singers on the Sharkwater score came and sang again, and she was just thrilled to sing on that as well, because she was also really so pleased to have worked on the first film. So it was a great process. And Rob came out to LA, and by the time he left, the score had gone through a whole metamorphosis, because he really has great clarity, which is a great thing. Not all directors do. Sometimes they say, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I hear it, which is very time-consuming. It's very creative, and that's wonderful. And I enjoy the creative collaboration. With Rob, he expects a level of creativity, but he already knows what he wants to feel, and he knows what he doesn't like. So that strips away a lot of trial and error.
Okay, so you did work very closely with Rob then in developing.
Absolutely,
the music.
he came and stayed at my studio for about a week or so, and just long days of just going through every scene of the movie and listening to all these tracks that I had already written, and then saying, if we took this from this and this from this, and what if you combined them, and what if we took out this and left to this and just did that? And that was the start. Then he came back because he had to finish the movie. And over the next month, it was all-nighters, and the movie was going through so many changes at the last minute. So the music went through so many shifts as well. So it was firing on all cylinders for the whole last month leading up to the premiere of the film.
Okay,
and we only finished the film about a week before, not even a week before it came out.
So what is it that drives the music? Is it the emotion you're trying to evoke from your audience, or is it your emotion or Rob's emotion?
Documentaries in general have there's a different feeling about music, which is, in a normal film, in a dramatic film, you can really lead with music. But I think with documentaries, you have to be really careful. You don't want to lead the audience. You end up with a sort of a Hallmark card. You don't want to do that. So the music has to leave room for the audience to make up their minds about things, which isn't to say that the music's neutral. It's anything but. It started with the idea of beauty, that we live in this beautiful place, and yet we're about to throw it away if we don't change. And then I think the film goes through this journey, and the music goes with it. And while there's a kind of a bed of the kind of music that Rob loves, that I love as well, there's a kind of it's a very modern style of music. It's very contemporary. And plus we got tracks in from some great other artists as well. But as the film progresses, the stakes go up. And as the stakes go up, the music does as well. There's scenes of a lot of energy, you know. Pretty soon, after we've seen all the beauty and astonishment of what is in nature, we start to meet some very angry people. You know, people are saying, apathy is not an option. Inaction is not an option. And the music is a part of that, you know. The energy, it starts to pound, it starts to pulse, it starts to drive, it digs in, because Rob has people in the film who are doing exactly that. So I'm there with them all the way. And I don't know how it is for other people, but I think the pinnacle of the movie, emotionally, and certainly the pinnacle of the score emotionally for me, was when those people were being kicked out of that conference, and the little boy who's planted 220 million trees around the world. This 12-year-old. I mean, my God. I want to do his next movie. You know, I can't. That scene where everybody's pushing and shoving and crying, and this boy is crying. It's, you know, saying, "This is my future."
Broke my heart.
Every time. And that's actually the longest piece of music in the film, because that whole scene of all those protesters who've been pushed out, who are trying to get even one word in, it just builds and builds and builds to that moment. And from there, it's really about Rob's sort of epiphany of where are we right now. You know, he was, I think, equally moved by that experience, you know, because he was behind the lens at that. So there is an emotional journey in the film, and, you know, my prerogative was to be a part of it, not to lead anybody on, not to lead, not to follow, but to be there moment by moment, to express the beauty, to express the anger, to express the emotion, to express the stakes. And, you know, Rob has a relationship with life underwater that I've never experienced in another person. Nobody. And I get these phone calls from Rob saying, "You know, Jeff, I heard the music you wrote, and I don't think it's enough. Can you believe what this fish can do? Because this is a creature unlike anything anybody can imagine. You have to get, the music has to show how unbelievable this is, and you're not there yet." And he kept pushing me and pushing me because he wanted people to feel the same thing that he's feeling. And it can't be intellectual, because an intellectual understanding doesn't really call people to action. For some reason, it's not enough to know something. You have to feel it. You have to feel it. And that isn't easy. Rob gets it. He's done the math, he's done the science, he's done the research, but he only wants to make a movie about emotions. And although you learn a lot, you know, he's not making he lets science speak for itself, but he doesn't speak about science. He talks about the world. He talks about the earth. He talks about his own life as a discoverer of the beauty of the planet. And now that he sees the jeopardy we're in, he wants us to follow him on his journey. And that was my job, was to be with him on that journey and help translate, or not translate, but broadcast his emotion into every person who sees this film.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it, and it's so true. It did a really good job of doing that. So since this film is essentially about saving our planet, saving our world, what are some things that you think people can do from home to help join the cause?
Well, I think the cause is about action and about making your voice heard. Rob talks about this a lot in the film, about making your voice heard. And we all have a lot of opportunities. We do. You know, first of all, it's that each of us is a part of the solution. It's not about asking other people to do it. It won't happen. And it's not just that we all live a lifestyle that is sustainable, although we should each live a lifestyle that is sustainable. We should be careful about what we buy, what we throw away, what we drive, how often we drive, that we take responsibility for our impact, our footprint on the planet. Clear enough. If there were a fraction of us, I mean, there's 7 billion of us. If there was 1 billion of us, we could party all day and all night. We don't get to anymore. There's too many of us. So we all have to take responsibility for living the 1/7 billionth role, not the 1/1 billionth role. So number one is to live a sustainable lifestyle by being really, really cautious and simple. Live simply. But the other thing, and I think Rob's very clear about this too, is get involved. You know, the movie is called Revolution. He thought about that for a while. That wasn't going to be the name of the film. It's called Revolution. That means take action. And the action is hold your politicians accountable. Elect the right people. Get the wrong people taken out. And tell every politician that is in your part of the world what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Write letters, sign petitions, vote. Get your friends to vote. Spread the word. That's the other thing, is each of us who sees the film, or each of us who simply acknowledges that there's a problem for which we are responsible not only for the problem, but for the solution as well. Tell every single human being you know, who you can talk to. We're at a crossroads. We get to choose. We get to choose. Are we in or are we out? Is it okay that your children are going to inherit a planet that within 100 years, none of us alive today would even recognize? Because that's what the stakes are. We're about to lose our water. We're about to lose our food. We're about to lose oxygen. It really is like that. So, you know, I have young daughters. I know what they're in for if we don't take action. So it's not an if thing. It's a what. What can I do? And what can I do today?
That's definitely really great advice, and I'm sure everyone will benefit from even incorporating even a little bit of that into their lifestyles.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad we were able to get the word out. I'm sure a lot of people are looking for a way to get involved. This is a great way to do it.
Absolutely. And go see the movie.
Definitely good advice.
Thank you so much,
Jeff. And just as a little thank you, we've actually got a little goodie bag here for you.
That's not a little goodie bag.
And it's actually filled with some really cool stuff as well. So
oh my God.
take a good look inside.
Is any of it contraband? I have to take this back to the United States tomorrow.
It's all legal, I promise.
Really? In every country?
Now your beautiful wife can go shopping because she has
Kelly.
such a
Wow. Thank you very
No
much.
problem.